Officer, I can provide my
Internal
credentials for
affairs. See if
verification.
they care.
Simple, polite,
That's right.
professional.
You know your place.
You're resisting
Deputy
arrest.
Bradley
I
Thornton
told you to get
stared
on the
at the
ground.
black woman's
Get down
badge.
now.
His lip curled with disgust. You black folks and your fake IDs. He dangled her internal affairs credentials like a dirty rag. What did you do? Print this at Kinko's? Steal it from a real cop? His partner Marsh laughed. Probably bought it on eBay. Thornton flicked the badge onto the scorching asphalt. It landed near Faith Kennedy's feet. Your kind don't become investigators, sweetheart. He spat near her shoes. You belong in the back of my patrol car, not pretending to be one of us. Gas station customers watched. Phones raised. Someone live-streamed. A man muttered, "Another one trying to act above her station." No one spoke up. No one intervened. 6 deputies against 1 black woman. The whole world watching, laughing. But in 15 minutes, every single one of them would be on their knees, begging. 6 hours earlier, Faith Kennedy woke to silence. The bedroom was still dark. Her alarm wouldn't ring for another 10 minutes. But her body knew. It always knew this day. Every cell in her being remembered. March 15th, 10 years since Darnell died. She turned her head on the pillow. The photograph on her nightstand caught the first pale light of dawn. 2 faces smiled back at her through the dusty glass frame. Faith at 32, her arm around her little brother's shoulders. Darnell at 22, flashing that goofy grin he always wore. Brother and sister at a backyard barbecue, ribs on the grill, cold lemonade sweating in their hands. The last picture they ever took together. 3 weeks after that photo was taken, Darnell was dead. Faith sat up slowly. The house was quiet. Down the hall, her son Elijah was still sleeping. She had an hour before she needed to wake him for school. She reached over and opened her nightstand drawer. Inside lay a thick folder. The edges were dog-eared from years of handling. Coffee stains marked the cover. She had opened this folder hundreds of times over the past decade, maybe thousands. 6 formal requests to unseal Darnell's case file. Each one stamped with the same cold response. Denied. Insufficient legal basis for reopening. 3 FOIA applications. The documents that came back were so heavily redacted they looked like classified CIA files. Black bars covering everything that mattered. Names, locations, witness statements, all hidden behind thick dark lines. 2 years working with a civil rights attorney. 2 years of dead ends. 2 years of judges who refused to reopen a case already ruled justified shooting. 10 years of fighting. 10 years of hitting walls. And all Faith had to show for it was a single name. Harrington County Sheriff's Department. Not a person. Not a face she could hate. Just an institution. A department with over 200 deputies spread across 300 square miles. The man who killed her brother could be any one of them. Or he could have quit years ago. Transferred to another county. Retired with full pension. Maybe even died of old age in his bed. She had no way to know. The system made damn sure of that. Faith closed the drawer softly. "This year, I won't open it again," she whispered to the empty room. "Not because I'm giving up. Because I've learned to live without answers." She pulled on her running shoes and slipped out the back door into the cool morning air. Riverside Heights was slowly waking. Sprinklers hissed on brown lawns. A dog barked somewhere down the street. Faith's feet found their familiar rhythm on the cracked sidewalk. Left, right, left, right. The pounding helped quiet her mind. 3 miles later, she stood at the iron gates of Riverside Memorial Cemetery. The headstone was simple gray granite, weathered by a decade of Georgia rain and sun. Darnell Kennedy, 1988-2015, beloved son and brother. Faith knelt on the damp grass. Morning dew soaked through her running pants, cold against her knees. She pressed her palm against the stone. It was cool and rough under her fingers. "I'm sorry I still haven't found him, Darnell." Her voice cracked in the quiet morning air. Maybe I never will, but I'm still trying to do the right thing. Every single day. That has to count for something, right? A cardinal landed on a nearby branch. It watched her with its small black eyes. Then it flew away. Faith stayed there for 5 minutes, listening to birds, feeling the cool stone beneath her hand, remembering her brother's laugh. Then she wiped her eyes and ran home. Elijah was in the kitchen when she returned, 16 years old, tall and lanky like his uncle had been. He was pouring cereal into a bowl, still half asleep, eyes barely open. "Morning, baby." "Morning, Mom." He yawned widely. "You went to see Uncle Darnell?" Faith paused at the refrigerator. "How did you know?" "You always run to the cemetery on March 15th. He looked at her with eyes too wise for 16. "You never really talk about how he died. Not the details." Faith poured herself a glass of orange juice. Her hand was steady, but her heart wasn't. "He was shot by a police officer during a traffic stop." She kept her voice even. "They ruled it self-defense. I never believed that. Not for 1 second." "Do you know who did it? Which cop?" The question hung heavy in the kitchen air. "No." Faith set down her glass. "The file is sealed. They never released the deputy's name. I've tried to find out for 10 years. 6 petitions, 3 FOIA requests, 2 years with a lawyer. Nothing worked." "That's so messed up." Elijah shook his head. "Why would they hide it?" "Because when a cop shoots someone and gets cleared, they're protected. Their identity stays secret to prevent retaliation." Faith's voice hardened. "Nobody thinks about the families, the people who just want to know the truth about how their loved ones died." Elijah picked up his backpack. "Uncle Darnell would be proud of you, Mom, for never giving up." Faith pulled him into a tight hug. She smelled his shampoo, felt his heart beating against hers. "I hope so, baby. I really hope so." After Elijah left for school, Faith sat at the kitchen table with her case files spread before her. Harrington County Sheriff's Department. 52 complaints of racial profiling in just 18 months. A disturbing pattern centered on a group of deputies known internally as the Brotherhood. She had been investigating them for 3 weeks. Her phone buzzed. Commander Victor Collins. "Coffee before you head out? Need to discuss something important." 20 minutes later, Faith sat across from her boss in a roadside diner 2 counties away from Harrington. The coffee was weak. The vinyl booth was cracked. But it was private. Collins stirred his coffee slowly. His face was troubled. "Harrington County. That's where your brother was killed." "Yes, sir." "Does that affect your objectivity on this case?" Faith met his eyes directly. "Sir, my brother was shot in Harrington 10 years ago. But I don't know who killed him. The file is sealed. I have no name, no face, no specific target. And if you discover something during this investigation, I report it immediately and request reassignment. I know the rules." Collins nodded. "That's why I trust you." He slid a folder across the table. "Body camera stays on at all times. We're monitoring the live feed from headquarters." Faith opened the folder. Inside were surveillance photos. Bradley Thornton, Kevin Marsh, the 2 worst offenders in the Brotherhood. She studied Thornton's photo. Hard eyes, arrogant smirk, 23 complaints, 0 disciplinary actions. She didn't know she was looking at her brother's killer. The drive into Harrington County felt like crossing into enemy territory. Faith's Honda Accord rolled past farmland and strip malls. Confederate flag bumper stickers decorated the backs of pickup trucks. A faded Blue Lives Matter banner hung over the entrance to a roadside diner. The letters were sun-bleached but still readable. A sheriff's cruiser passed going the other way. The deputy inside turned his head to watch her. His eyes tracked her car in the rear-view mirror until she was out of sight. Faith kept her hands at 10 and 2, eyes on the road. This was her 5th drive through Harrington in 3 weeks. 4 times before, no one had stopped her. But today was Sunday. According to her files, the Brotherhood worked Sundays. She pulled into the quick-stop gas station on Route 17. The Georgia sun beat down without mercy. Heat shimmered off the asphalt in waves. The air smelled like gasoline and hot pavement. Faith filled her tank, listening to the rhythmic click of the pump. Then she went inside to buy a bottle of water. The store was air-conditioned, a welcome relief. She grabbed a water from the cooler and paid the bored teenager behind the counter. When she stepped back outside, her stomach dropped. A patrol car was parked behind her Honda, blocking her in. 2 deputies stood beside it. She recognized them immediately from the photos in her files. Bradley Thornton, Kevin Marsh. 23 complaints between them in 5 years. Excessive force, racial profiling, unlawful stops, not a single disciplinary action. Thornton was watching her like a hawk watching a mouse, his thumbs hooked into his belt, his jaw working on a piece of gum. "This your vehicle, ma'am?" His voice dripped with false politeness. "Yes, officer." Faith kept her tone neutral, calm, professional. "License and registration." She handed them over without argument. Marsh ran her plates while Thornton circled her car slowly. He peered through the windows, looked at the tires, examined the bumper like he expected to find drugs hidden somewhere. "What's the reason for the stop?" Faith asked. "Got reports of a vehicle matching this description involved in a theft nearby." Faith almost smiled. She had read this exact excuse in at least a dozen complaints. Classic pretext, stop. Find a reason, any reason, to pull over a black driver. Then see what you could shake loose. Thornton squinted at her license, turned it over, held it up to the light. "This looks altered." It wasn't. They both knew it wasn't. "I'll need secondary identification." Faith had a choice to make. She could reveal her internal affairs credentials right now, flash her badge, call Collins, end this whole charade in 30 seconds. But then 3 weeks of careful investigation would be worthless. Every complaint from every victim would stay buried. The Brotherhood would close ranks and cover their tracks. She needed evidence, real evidence, documented on camera. "Here's my badge and credentials." She handed over her internal affairs ID. "You can call my division to verify." Thornton looked at the badge. His eyes widened for just a split second. Then his face twisted into an ugly smile. "You black folks and your fake IDs." He showed it to Marsh. "Hey, Kev, you ever seen internal affairs credentials that look like this?" Marsh grinned broadly. "Nope. Looks like something off Amazon. Maybe Wish.com. "What did you do? Print this at Kinko's? Steal it from a real cop?" "I can give you the phone number for my commanding officer." Faith kept her voice steady. "He'll confirm everything in 2 minutes." Thornton snorted. "Sure you can, and I'll call the president while I'm at it." He held up the badge between 2 fingers, like it was contaminated, like touching it might give him a disease. "This is obviously counterfeit. I'm placing you under detention for suspected fraud and impersonation of a law enforcement officer." "Sir, that's a legitimate credential. If you would just make 1 phone call..." "Your kind don't become investigators, sweetheart." Thornton flicked the badge. It spun through the air and landed on the scorching asphalt near Faith's feet. "You belong in the back of my patrol car, not pretending to be one of us." He spat. A glob of saliva landed inches from her shoe. Faith felt her stomach clench. Her hands wanted to ball into fists, but she didn't react, didn't move, didn't give him the satisfaction. Her body camera was recording everything, every word, every action, every violation. "Hands on the hood," Thornton ordered. "Spread your legs." Faith complied. The metal hood burned through her blazer like a hot iron. She could feel blisters forming on her palms. The heat radiated up through her wrists. Customers at the gas station had stopped what they were doing. A man filling his truck watched openly. A woman with 2 kids hurried them into her minivan. Several people had their phones out. One was clearly live streaming. The red dot blinked in the corner of his screen. A man in a Confederate flag t-shirt muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. "Another one trying to act above her station." Someone chuckled. No one spoke up for her. Thornton patted her down roughly. His hands moved slowly, deliberately. They lingered in places they had no business being. "Gotta be thorough," he said with a smirk. He grabbed her purse and upended it onto the ground. Everything spilled out onto the dirty asphalt. Wallet, keys, lipstick, hand sanitizer. A small photograph in a plastic sleeve. Thornton picked up the photo. It showed 2 people smiling at a barbecue. Faith and Darnell. 10 years ago. The last picture they ever took together. "Who's this?" Thornton held it up. Faith's throat tightened. "My brother." Thornton stared at the picture. He stared directly at Darnell's face. Those familiar eyes, that goofy grin. Nothing. No recognition. Not even a flicker. He had killed this man. Shot him 3 times on a dark road, and he couldn't even remember his face. Thornton tossed the photo onto the ground with everything else. Faith's heart pounded against her ribs. She didn't understand why that casual dismissal hurt so much. She didn't know, not yet, that she was standing 3 feet from Darnell's killer. That the man who had just thrown her brother's photograph into the dirt was the same man who had put 3 bullets in his chest 10 years ago. But something deep inside her knew. Something primal. Thornton continued his search. He reached under Faith's blazer and found her service weapon in its concealed holster. "Gun!" He jumped backward, hand flying to his own pistol. "She's got a gun! Get on the ground, now!" "I have a concealed carry permit." "On the ground, now!" Faith dropped to her knees, then onto her stomach. The asphalt scorched her cheek like a hot griddle. She could smell tar and gasoline. Marsh's knee pressed into her back, his full weight driving her down. She couldn't breathe. Gasps from the crowd. More phones appeared. A woman screamed, "She didn't do anything!" Thornton whirled on the crowd. "Mind your own damn business. Anyone interferes, you're next." Most people backed away. Parents pulled their children toward their cars. The man in the Confederate flag shirt was grinning. But one woman stayed. Dolores Hampton, 60 years old. Gray hair pulled back in a bun. She sat in her car with the window down, phone raised, still recording. Her son had been beaten by Thornton 2 years ago. The complaint went nowhere. The investigation was closed. She wasn't going to stop filming. Not this time. Thornton keyed his radio. "Dispatch, requesting additional units at Quick Stop on Route 17. Female suspect armed with unauthorized weapon and surveillance materials on sheriff's deputies. Possible domestic terrorism connection." 2 more cruisers arrived within minutes. Sirens wailing, lights flashing. 4 more deputies piled out. 8 total now. They surrounded Faith like wolves circling wounded prey. One deputy kicked her scattered belongings. Lipstick rolled into a puddle of oil. Another laughed out loud. "Internal affairs? More like internal joke." The whole group laughed. 8 men in uniform, laughing at one woman face down on the burning pavement. Thornton hauled Faith to her feet. Marsh slapped handcuffs on her wrists. Too tight. Much too tight. The metal edges bit into her skin like teeth. "When we prove this badge is fake," Thornton hissed in her ear, "you're looking at 5 years minimum. Impersonating an officer. Illegal surveillance. Resisting arrest." "I haven't resisted anything." Thornton's smile didn't reach his eyes. "We'll see about that. He shoved her toward his patrol car. Faith stumbled. Her knee hit the ground. Pain shot up her leg like electricity. Someone in the crowd laughed again. Thornton opened the back door and pushed her inside. The vinyl seats were burning hot. The air was thick and stale. No air conditioning. He slammed the door. Through the window, Faith watched him gather her belongings. Her badge, her gun, her files, her brother's photograph. He threw them all in an evidence bag like they were garbage. Then he climbed into the driver's seat and reached for the radio. The patrol car pulled out of the gas station parking lot, gravel crunching under the tires. Faith sat in the back seat with her hands cuffed behind her. The plastic seat burned through her pants. Sweat dripped down her temples and stung her eyes. The air was so thick and hot it felt like breathing soup. Thornton caught her eye in the rearview mirror. His lips curved into a satisfied smirk. "Comfortable back there, sweetheart?" Faith didn't answer. "Silent treatment? Smart." Thornton adjusted the mirror so he could watch her better. "You're gonna need a good lawyer where you're going. Expensive one." Marsh turned around in the passenger seat. His eyes were cold and amused, like a cat playing with a wounded bird. "You know what happens to fake cops in county lockup? The real criminals don't take kindly to imposters, especially the ones pretending to be internal affairs." "I'm not an imposter." Faith kept her voice calm. "Professional. Call the State Police Internal Affairs Division. Ask for Commander Victor Collins. He'll verify everything in 2 minutes." "Commander Collins?" Thornton snorted and shook his head. "Sure, and I'm the governor of Georgia." He picked up the radio mic. "Dispatch, ETA 10 minutes. Prepare booking for 1 female suspect. Charges: impersonation of a law enforcement officer, possession of unauthorized weapon, illegal surveillance of government employees, resisting arrest." "I didn't resist anything." "Your word against mine." Thornton's eyes met hers in the mirror. Cold, confident. "And sweetheart, nobody's going to believe you. Not here. Not ever." The car wound through rural roads. Faith watched the Georgia countryside pass through the smudged window. White farmhouses with wraparound porches. Cattle grazing behind wooden fences. A small white church with a steeple reaching toward the cloudless sky. Somewhere out here, 10 years ago, Darnell had taken his last breath. Route 17 stretched for 30 miles through Harrington County. The original reports never specified the exact location of the shooting, just Route 17, Harrington County, somewhere on this endless ribbon of asphalt. Faith looked at the passing trees, the fields, the ditches alongside the road. Her brother had died on a road just like this one. Maybe this very road. Maybe they were passing the exact spot right now. She would never know. The Harrington County Sheriff's Station was a low brick building squatting at the edge of town. A flagpole stood out front, American flag hanging limp in the still air. Below it flew a black and blue, thin blue line flag. Thornton parked and yanked Faith out of the car. Her legs had gone numb from the heat and the awkward position. She stumbled and he caught her arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "Walk straight," he muttered. "Don't embarrass yourself more than you already have." The station doors opened to a blast of cold air. After the suffocating heat of the patrol car, it felt like stepping into a meat locker. Faith shivered involuntarily. Deputies looked up from their desks. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Every eye in the room tracked Faith as Thornton paraded her through the bullpen like a trophy. "Got ourselves a live one," Thornton announced loudly. He wanted everyone to hear. "Claims she's internal affairs. Can you believe that?" Laughter rippled through the room. Someone wolf whistled. "Badge looked like something from a Halloween store," Marsh added from behind. More laughter. Louder this time. The whole room was enjoying the show. Faith kept her head high. Her wrists throbbed where the cuffs cut into her skin. She could feel blood trickling down her palm, but she refused to show pain, refused to give them anything. Thornton shoved her toward the booking desk. A sergeant with a gray mustache and tired eyes looked up from his paperwork. "What have we got?" "Impersonation, illegal surveillance, armed suspect." Thornton dropped the evidence bag on the desk with a heavy thud. "Found files on our guys in her car. Names, addresses, complaint histories, the whole 9 yards." The sergeant rifled through the bag. He pulled out Faith's badge, turned it over in his weathered hands, held it up to the fluorescent light. "Looks real enough to me." "It's a good fake," Thornton said quickly. Too quickly. "Professional quality. Probably ordered it from some website." "I want to speak to Sheriff Whitmore," Faith said clearly. Loud enough for everyone to hear. Thornton laughed. "The sheriff has better things to do than talk to fake cops playing dress-up. It's my right to speak to the commanding officer." "Your rights?" Thornton leaned close, so close she could smell the coffee and cigarettes on his breath, so close she could see the broken blood vessels in his nose. "Sweetheart, you don't have rights anymore. You're in my house now, and in my house I make the rules." He grabbed her arm and dragged her toward the holding cells. The cell was 8 feet by 8 feet. Gray concrete walls covered with scratched graffiti. A metal bench bolted to the floor. A steel toilet with no seat. The smell of industrial disinfectant couldn't quite mask something older and more unpleasant underneath. The door clanged shut behind her. The sound echoed off the walls. Faith was alone. She sat down on the metal bench. It was cold through her pants. The cuffs had been removed, but the red marks around her wrists looked like bracelets made of blood. For the first time since the traffic stop began, she allowed herself to feel the fear. It crawled up her spine like ice water. It tightened her chest, made it hard to breathe. What if Collins hadn't been watching? What if the live stream had failed? What if the body camera had malfunctioned? Technology failed all the time. She could disappear in here. Another black woman swallowed by a system designed to grind people like her into dust. Another name that nobody would remember, just like Darnell. No. Faith pushed the thought away, forced it down. Collins was watching. He had been watching from the moment she left the diner. Help was coming. It had to be. Back in the bullpen, Thornton was celebrating his catch. He had laid out Faith's case files on his desk. His own name appeared on page after page. Complaints, incident reports, witness statements, dates and times and details. "Would you look at this?" He held up a document, shaking it for the room to see. "She had all this on me. Everything from the last 3 years. Every single complaint." Marsh leaned over his shoulder, whistling low. "That's some serious surveillance, Brad. Anti-police conspiracy." Thornton's face was flushed red with anger, or maybe excitement. Hard to tell which. "That's what this is. Some activist group sent her. Has to be. Trying to take down good cops." "What do we do with her?" Thornton smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. There was something hungry in it, something predatory. "We make sure nothing she collected ever sees the light of day. Ever." He reached for the evidence bag. His fingers closed around Faith's belongings. Her badge, her gun, her files. And then his hand brushed against something else, something small and black clipped to her blazer, the body camera. His hand froze mid-motion. He hadn't noticed it before. He had been too busy enjoying himself, too confident, too arrogant. But now he looked closer. The lapel pin, the small dark lens, the tiny blinking light. No, 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 no. The phone on Sergeant Wilson's desk rang, shrill and loud in the sudden silence. Wilson answered. His face went white, then gray, like all the blood had drained out through his feet. "Thornton?" His voice came out strangled, like someone was choking him. "It's for you. State Police." Thornton frowned. "State Police? What the hell do they want?" "Not just State Police." Wilson swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed. "Internal Affairs. They're asking about your suspect. Tell them we're processing her. We'll call back." Wilson shook his head slowly. His hand trembled as he held out the phone. "They say they're watching. They say they've been watching for 52 minutes. He paused. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Live." The blood drained from Thornton's face. He grabbed the phone, pressed it to his ear. His hand was shaking. "This is Deputy Thornton." The voice on the other end was ice cold, each word precise and sharp as a surgical blade. "Deputy Thornton, this is Commander Victor Collins, State Police Internal Affairs Division." Thornton's mouth went dry. "I've been watching a live feed from my senior investigator's body camera for the past 52 minutes. I watched you call her badge fake. I watched you throw it on the ground. I watched you spit at her feet. I watched you conduct an illegal search of her person and her vehicle. I watched you arrest her on completely fabricated charges." Thornton opened his mouth. No sound came out. His throat had closed up. "I want Sheriff Whitmore on this phone in 2 minutes. And Deputy, every single word you say from this moment forward is being recorded." The line went dead. Thornton stood frozen. The phone dangled from his limp hand. The bullpen had gone completely silent. Every deputy was staring. Every face was confused. Some were starting to look scared. Then Sheriff Dale Whitmore emerged from his office. His tie was loose. His face was annoyed. "What the hell is going on out here? I'm trying to do paperwork." Thornton turned to face him. His face was the color of old newspaper. His lips were trembling. "Sheriff," his voice cracked like a teenage boy's, "we have a problem. A big problem." Sheriff Whitmore snatched the phone from Thornton's trembling hand. "This is Sheriff Dale Whitmore. Who am I speaking to?" "Commander Victor Collins, State Police Internal Affairs." The voice was calm, controlled, deadly, like a surgeon explaining exactly how he was going to cut you open. "Sheriff, I'm going to need you to listen very carefully. Do not interrupt." Whitmore's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being told what to do, not in his own station. "I'm listening." "Approximately 1 hour ago, your deputies conducted a traffic stop on one of my senior investigators. They called her badge fake. They threw her credentials on the ground. They spat at her feet. They conducted an illegal search of her person and her vehicle. They found her legally concealed weapon and used it as pretext for arrest. They transported her to your facility on completely fabricated charges." "Now hold on just a minute. I said do not interrupt." Collins's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Everything I just described was captured on my investigator's body camera. The feed has been streaming live to my office for 52 minutes. The State Attorney General's office has been watching for the last 20 minutes. As we speak, agents from the FBI Civil Rights Division are en route to your location." Whitmore's face went from red to gray. His hand holding the phone had started to shake. "What? What, investigator?" "Senior Investigator Faith Kennedy. She has been conducting an undercover investigation into your department's pattern of racial profiling for the past 3 months. Deputy Bradley Thornton and Deputy Kevin Marsh were primary targets." Whitmore turned slowly. His eyes found Thornton across the room. If looks could kill, Thornton would have dropped dead on the spot. "That woman you arrested." Whitmore's voice was barely above a whisper, but in the silent station, everyone heard it. "Do you have any idea who she is?" Thornton shook his head. He looked like he might vomit right there on the floor. "She's Internal Affairs." Whitmore's voice rose with each word. "State Police Internal Affairs. She's been investigating this department for 3 months. And you—" He jabbed a thick finger at Thornton's chest. "You arrested her. On camera. Live streamed to the goddamn Attorney General's office." Thornton's mouth opened and closed, like a fish dying on a dock. No words came out. "The badge," Marsh started to say. The badge was real. Whitmore slammed his fist on the nearest desk. Coffee cups jumped, papers scattered. It was real, and you threw it in the dirt like garbage. You spat at a state police investigator. The bullpen was dead silent. Deputies stared at their shoes, at the ceiling, anywhere but at Thornton. "Sir." Thornton's voice came out as a croak. "Sir, I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know." "You didn't know?" Whitmore was shaking with rage. "You didn't bother to check. One phone call, one simple verification, 30 seconds. That's all it would have taken." He turned back to the phone, tried to compose himself. Failed. "Commander Collins, this was a mistake. A terrible mistake. We'll release her immediately. Full apology, whatever you need. You'll do more than that." Collins's voice was ice and steel. "You will surrender all weapons and badges from every deputy involved. You will preserve all evidence. You will cooperate fully with the federal investigation that is about to descend on your department like the wrath of God. Do I make myself perfectly clear?" Yes, absolutely, of course. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Do not let Deputy Thornton leave the building. Do not let him speak to anyone. Do not let him touch anything." The line went dead. Whitmore stared at the phone in his hand, then at Thornton, then at the hallway leading to the holding cells. "Get her out," he said quietly. "Right now." The cell door opened with a clang that echoed off the concrete walls. Faith looked up. Sheriff Whitmore himself was standing in the doorway. His face was pale. His hands were shaking as he fumbled with her handcuffs. "Investigator Kennedy, his voice cracked. I can't begin to apologize for what happened. Save it." Faith rubbed her wrists as the cuffs came off. Angry red marks circled them like bracelets of blood. Some of the skin had broken. It stung. She stepped out of the cell, into the bullpen. Every deputy in the room was staring at her. Thornton stood by his desk, frozen. His face was chalk white. He couldn't meet her eyes. Faith's gaze swept across the room, and then she saw it. On the wall inside Thornton's office, behind his desk, a corkboard covered with photographs. Mugshots, candid shots, black and brown faces, dozens of them, arranged in neat rows like a collection. A trophy board. Faith walked toward it slowly. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it in her ears. The photographs were arranged chronologically, dates written beneath each one. Some of the names she recognized from the complaint files. Victims of the Brotherhood going back years. And there, in the bottom right corner, a young black man, 22 years old, smiling in his mugshot like he had nothing to hide, like he still believed the world was a fair place. The date beneath the photo, March 15th, 2015. Faith's hand trembled as she reached out. Her fingers touched the photograph. Darnell Kennedy, her baby brother. 10 years. 10 years of sealed files and denied petitions and redacted documents. 10 years of not knowing. 10 years of waking up every morning with a hole in her heart where the truth should be. And here he was, pinned to a wall like a butterfly in a collector's case. A trophy. A souvenir. She turned slowly. Thornton stood 5 feet away. His face was chalk white. "Who is this?" Faith's voice was steady. "Barely." Thornton blinked. "What?" "Darnell Kennedy, March 15th, 2015. She tapped the photograph. "Do you remember him?" Thornton looked at the picture, his forehead creased. He was trying to place the face. Nothing. No recognition. No memory. I don't. You shot him on Route 17. 3 bullets in the chest. You reported your dash cam was broken." Thornton's eyes went wide. His mouth fell open. "How do you—" "He was my brother." The words echoed through the silent station like a gunshot. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody made a sound. Faith stared at the man who had killed Darnell. The man who had thrown her badge in the dirt. The man who had called her sweetheart and your kind. The man who had treated her like garbage. The man who couldn't even remember her brother's face. Behind them, the station doors burst open. Commander Victor Collins strode in like an avenging angel. 4 state police investigators flanked him. Their faces were stone. "Deputy Bradley Thornton," Collins's voice rang through the building like a bell. "You're under arrest." The handcuffs clicked around Thornton's wrists with a cold, final sound, the same wrists that had thrown Faith's badge in the dirt, the same hands that had tossed her brother's photograph onto the asphalt, the same fingers that had pulled the trigger 3 times on a dark road 10 years ago. Thornton didn't resist. He didn't speak. He just stood there with empty eyes while the state police investigators read him his rights. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Faith watched from across the room. Her legs felt weak. Her hands were shaking. 10 years of searching. 10 years of hitting walls. 10 years of bureaucratic rejection letters and sealed files and redacted documents. And the answer had been right here all along. Pinned to a wall. Hiding in plain sight. Commander Collins approached her. His face was tight with concern. "Kennedy, are you okay?" She shook her head slowly. "He killed my brother, sir, 10 years ago. That man right there. That's the one who did it." Collins looked at the trophy board, at Darnell's photograph, at the date written beneath it. His jaw tightened so hard the muscles in his cheek jumped. "I saw it on the feed. I saw you find the picture." His voice was gentle now. "I'm so sorry, Faith. I had no idea." "Neither did I." She laughed. It came out bitter and broken. "I came here to investigate racial profiling. 52 complaints, that's all. I didn't know I would find this." Across the room, Sheriff Whitmore was trying desperately to salvage what was left of his career. This was all Thornton, he was telling anyone who would listen. "Rogue deputy. I had no knowledge of his activities. Department policy strictly prohibits this kind of behavior." "Sheriff Whitmore." Collins cut him off with a voice like a knife. "I have documentation of 12 complaints against Deputy Thornton that crossed your desk personally, all dismissed without investigation, all buried. We'll be discussing your role in this at considerable length." Whitmore's face went from pale to gray. One by one, the deputies involved in Faith's arrest were being processed. Marsh, the 4 backup officers. One by one, their weapons were confiscated, their badges surrendered, their faces photographed. Faith watched them line up like the criminals they were. Some looked scared, some looked defiant. One was crying. Good. The station doors opened again with a bang. A young man burst through, tall, 16 years old. His eyes were red and wild with panic. "Mom!" "Elijah." Faith's heart lurched in her chest. "Baby, what are you doing here?" "I saw the video." He was crying, tears streaming down his face. "Someone posted it on TikTok. It already has 1 million views. I saw them. I saw what they did to you. I saw that cop throw your badge." Faith pulled him into her arms and held him tight. He was shaking. She was shaking. They were both shaking. "I'm okay," she whispered into his hair. "I'm okay, baby. It's over now." "Is it true?" He pulled back to look at her face. His eyes searched hers desperately. "What they're saying on Twitter? About Uncle Darnell?" Faith looked across the room. Thornton was being led toward the back exit. His head was down. His shoulders were slumped. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. "You see that man?" Faith said quietly. "The one in handcuffs?" "Yeah?" "That's the man who killed your uncle, 10 years ago." Elijah went completely still. The color drained from his face. 10 years he had asked about Uncle Darnell. 10 years Faith had said, One day, you'll know the whole story. 10 years of protecting him from a truth she didn't even fully understand herself. She never imagined the revelation would come like this. How? Elijah's voice was barely a whisper. How did you find out? I didn't. Not on purpose. Faith shook her head slowly. I came here to investigate something else. Complaints about racial profiling. I didn't know Thornton was connected to Darnell until I saw the photo on his wall. So it was. So, an accident? That you found him? Faith thought about the question. About 10 years of searching. About 6 denied petitions. About the way fate worked sometimes. Call it what you want. Fate, luck, divine intervention. She touched her son's face. I spent 10 years looking for answers. And then, on the anniversary of Darnell's death, his killer walked right up to me and arrested me himself. Thornton was at the exit door now. 2 state police officers gripped his arms. He stopped, turned back. His eyes found Faith across the room. I didn't know. His voice was raw and ragged. I swear to God, I didn't know you were his sister. Faith met his gaze, held it, didn't look away. You didn't know a lot of things today, Deputy. She walked toward him slowly. Every eye in the station followed her. The only sound was her footsteps on the linoleum floor. You didn't know my badge was real. You didn't know I was investigating you. You didn't know my body camera was streaming to headquarters. She stopped 3 feet away from him. But here's what you should know now. I didn't come to Harrington looking for Darnell's killer. I was assigned to investigate 52 complaints of racial profiling. I didn't know you were connected to my brother until 5 minutes ago. Thornton stared at her. His eyes were wet. This wasn't a trap, Faith said quietly. This wasn't revenge. This was fate. You destroyed your own career because you couldn't treat a black woman with basic human decency. You did this to yourself. She turned her back on him. Get him out of here. The door closed behind Thornton, the man who had killed her brother. The man who didn't even remember his face. Elijah was at her side. She pulled him close. It's over, baby, she whispered. It's finally over. But even as she said the words, Faith knew they weren't quite true. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. 72 hours later, Faith sat in Commander Collins's office. 3 days since the traffic stop. 3 days since she discovered her brother's killer. Collins placed a USB drive on the desk. We received a call yesterday. Raymond Holloway, former deputy with Harrington County. Quit 5 years ago. Faith looked at the USB. Something in Collins's tone made her chest tighten. He was Thornton's partner the day your brother was shot. He saw everything. The room seemed to shrink. For 10 years, Holloway kept a secret. A copy of the dashcam footage Thornton claimed was corrupted. He made a backup before Thornton deleted the original. Faith couldn't breathe. He saw what happened to you. Watched Thornton do to you exactly what he did to Darnell. He couldn't stay silent anymore. Collins slid the USB toward her. This is the footage. From the day your brother died. Faith stared at the small piece of plastic. 10 years of searching. 6 denied petitions. 3 useless FOIA requests. And the answer had been in a former deputy's drawer the whole time. She watched the footage alone. Darnell Kennedy, 22 years old, pulled over for a broken taillight. He was calm, polite. Yes, officer. Here's my license, officer. Thornton asked him to step out. Darnell complied. Thornton told him to put his hands up. Darnell raised them high, reaching for the sky like he was praying. 3 shots. Darnell fell. Thornton stood over him, watched him die, then picked up the dash cam and turned it off. Faith watched her brother's murder twice. then closed the laptop and cried for an hour. The footage went public the next week. The nation watched a young black man die with his hands raised. They watched a deputy shoot him for nothing. They watched him lie about it for 10 years. The hashtag Justice for Darnell trended for 9 days. Faith gave one interview. I spent 10 years looking for answers. 6 petitions. 3 FOIA requests. Every legal avenue. Nothing worked. She paused. Then, on the 10th anniversary of my brother's death, his killer pulled me over for driving while black. He arrested me, mocked me, and walked me right past the evidence I'd been searching for all along. The interview was viewed 50 million times. A federal grand jury convened within 3 weeks. The indictments came down like hammer blows. Bradley Thornton, second-degree murder, civil rights violations, false arrest, obstruction of justice, 15 counts. Kevin Marsh, civil rights violations, accessory charges, 8 counts. Dale Whitmore, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, pattern of civil rights violations, 11 counts. 4 additional deputies, various charges. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Faith testified for 2 days. She described the traffic stop, the humiliation, the discovery. The defense tried to argue entrapment. They said Faith had targeted Thornton because of Darnell. The prosecutor destroyed that argument in 30 seconds. Investigator Kennedy didn't know who killed her brother until she saw his photograph on that wall. The case file was sealed. The deputy's name was never released. She was assigned to investigate 52 complaints of racial profiling, complaints that had nothing to do with her brother. The dashcam footage played in court. Jurors wept. A woman had to be escorted out when she started screaming. Thornton sat motionless. He didn't look at Faith. He stared at the table like a man already dead. The verdict came on a Tuesday. Guilty. All counts. The sentencing hearing was standing room only. Judge Margaret Crawford looked at Thornton with undisguised contempt. Deputy Thornton, you swore an oath to protect and serve. Instead, you became a predator. You killed an unarmed man with his hands raised. You covered it up. You displayed his photograph as a trophy. And when his sister crossed your path 10 years later, you did the same thing to her. She paused. The only reason Faith Kennedy is alive is because she had a body camera. Bradley Thornton, 25 years federal prison. Kevin Marsh, 6 years. Dale Whitmore, 12 years. Barred from public office for life. Other deputies, 3 to 8 years each. The reforms came quickly. Harrington County placed under federal consent decree. Mandatory body cameras. Independent civilian oversight board. New sheriff from outside the county. The state legislature passed a new law, the Darnell Kennedy Act. All dashcam and body camera footage preserved for 25 years. No exceptions. Faith testified before Congress. My brother didn't have a body camera. He didn't have a live stream to headquarters. He was alone on a dark road with a man who saw him as less than human. She looked into the camera. How many more Darnells are out there? How many deaths have been covered up? How many families are still waiting for answers? The Darnell Kennedy Act passed unanimously. 1 year later, Faith Kennedy stood before a new door. The nameplate read, Faith Kennedy, Assistant Director, State Police Internal Affairs Division. Her office was modest. A desk, 2 chairs, a window overlooking the state capitol. The walls held photographs, Elijah at his junior prom, her parents on their anniversary, Darnell at his college graduation. On her desk sat 2 objects. The first, her internal affairs badge, the one Thornton had thrown in the dirt. She had kept it, cleaned it, framed it, a reminder. The second, a thick folder, dog-eared, coffee-stained, 6 denied petitions, 3 useless FOIA responses, and now on top, a single new document. Case closed, justice served. Faith touched the folder, then closed the drawer. That afternoon, she drove to Riverside Memorial Cemetery. Elijah was waiting by the car, 17 now, taller than his uncle had been. They walked together through the headstones. Darnell Kennedy, 1988-2015, beloved son and brother, not forgotten. The last words were new, added after the trial. Faith knelt on the grass. She placed something against the headstone, a copy of the sentencing document. 25 years for Bradley Thornton. "Hey, baby brother." Her voice was soft. "I brought you something. Took me 10 years, but I got it done." "Do you think he knows?" Elijah asked. "Wherever he is?" "I hope so. I really hope so." They stood in silence. "Mom, do you hate him? Thornton?" Faith considered the question. "I used to. For 10 years, I woke up with hate. It was the first thing I felt every morning, the last thing before sleep. And now? Now I feel relieved. Not because Thornton's in prison, but because Darnell is finally remembered the right way. Not as a trophy on a wall, as the man he really was." Elijah nodded. "He would be proud of you." "I hope so, baby." She took one last look at the headstone, then turned to leave. "Mom, one more thing." "What?" "You spent 10 years looking, and the answers came when you weren't even looking." Faith smiled sadly. "That's the thing about justice. Sometimes it doesn't come because you chase it. It comes because you never stop doing the right thing, and eventually fate finds a way." They walked back to the car, mother and son, side by side. Bradley Thornton thought he was untouchable. He thought his badge gave him power over anyone he deemed lesser. He thought he could kill a young black man, cover it up, and walk free forever. He was wrong. But this isn't about revenge. Faith Kennedy didn't go to Harrington looking for her brother's killer. She was assigned to investigate 52 complaints of racial profiling. She didn't know fate would lead her to the man she'd been hunting for 10 years. Sometimes justice comes in ways we never expect. Sometimes it takes patience. Sometimes it takes a body camera. And sometimes it just takes one person who refuses to stay silent. Raymond Holloway kept his secret for 10 years. 10 years of guilt. But when he saw Thornton do to Faith what he had done to Darnell, he couldn't stay quiet anymore. One person finally decided to do the right thing, and that made all the difference. If this story moved you, share it. Every person who sees this understands the reality a little better. Subscribe if you want more stories about justice served. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. And leave a comment. Have you ever stayed silent about something you knew was wrong? What would it take for you to speak up? Raymond Holloway stayed silent for 10 years. He finally came forward, but only after watching Thornton do it again. So here's the question I want you to debate. Is Holloway a hero for finally telling the truth? Or was he complicit for staying silent so long? Where is the line between the two? Think about it. For those who weren't believed, and for those who finally spoke up.